think I need some work on that. So basically what that was that is essentially balance beam. So this balance beam right there is a great way for a bunch of skaters, and I use that with skaters all the time. I use it with all my figure skaters. Just an unreal way to really train the muscles of the foot and train the muscles of the ankle. I'm gonna be throwing together some clips for that as well. But today we are talking about knee pain when you cycle. So let me just go set that stuff up and we'll get right to it. Okay, so whether you are dealing with something like a patellofemoral syndrome or you're dealing with something a little bit more serious like chondromalacia, what you have to really keep in mind is that the goal with this entire thing is really the same thing. You want to release the tension and you want to improve the way you move. So if you can do both those things, so reduce tension, improve the way you move, chances are that the problem will eventually subside. Now we have to remember one thing, is that when you are doing cycling, you're doing an activity, your body's not exactly designed to do any of these cycling movements. You know, it's designed to be able to manage it, but it's not designed for it. So cycling essentially is a piece, it's a tool that we're putting our body onto and we're trying to do exercise with it. It's not as if we were doing running where that's a naturally designed thing. There's no real technology involved in it. So when you are doing these types of exercises that require some type of technology, usually what happens is your body gets put in these confined positions. We have to try to reduce the impact of those confined spaces on our body. The other thing we have to keep in mind is that we also aren't cycling for 16 hours a day. We're doing a bunch of other stuff for 16 hours a day. So a lot of that stuff will kind of carry over because of the way we basically do things in the 21st century is essentially not really designed for the way our body moves. Like we don't hunt, we don't like run outside, we don't sleep outside, we sleep on a mattress, we sit on couches, we ride in cars, we sit at desks and work on a computer all day. So the things we did, 500-600 years ago are nowhere near what we're doing today. So our body hasn't really adapted to that. So the reason I really wanted to put this topic together was essentially because a subscriber had basically asked about knee pain during biking, so specifically chondromalacia. So now to kind of give you an idea of the two, chondromalacia is essentially an irritation behind the kneecap. So it's actually a structural breakdown. So what it can be is it can either present itself as just an irritation of it, which is potentially going to subside with some resting and some icing. More often than not, chondromalacia is really diagnosed when there's actually like a complete breakdown of that tissue behind the kneecap. So when that happens, you're gonna hear like a grinding. It's a very, very obvious like crunching and grinding and scraping of the bone. It's not just gonna be like a little clicking, popping that we normally always experience in our knees. So don't panic. This is not like the end of the world. It's a very, very easy to understand sound. You can really hear it. It's very distinct. So before I go on any further, I have to do this legal reasons. If you have knee pain, if you have any irritation, if you have any structural damage, or if you're feeling anything that's wrong, definitely get it checked out by a physical therapist or an athletic therapist. Get someone who's a lot more qualified to really handle that kind of stuff. Get them to take a look at it, get a doctor to take a look at it, make sure that it is diagnosed properly so you're not just kind of guessing. We don't want it to be like a meniscus tear or an ACL tear and then you're treating it like it's something very easy, very manageable. So the two phases of this are gonna be very simple. You're gonna wanna reduce the tension, and the second thing you're gonna wanna do is create some proper movement. So foam rolling is gonna be a great way to really undo all of that tension that you have built up in the knee. So what happens is you'll generally end up doing a lot of exercises, doing a lot of sitting, doing a lot of walking, doing a lot of biking, and that's gonna build up a lot of the tension in the quad muscle, so particularly the quad muscle. The reason I'm going after this muscle is because that's the muscle that really kind of passes over the kneecap and really dictates a lot of its movement. So what you want to do is kind of rule that out right from the get-go, release the tension and break apart any of the scar tissue that's there. It might be either creating too much tension, pulling it in a different direction, or restricting the nice smooth movement. When it comes down to something like chondromalacia, you want to make sure that your body is moving well. Moving well is gonna be the best thing for you. If you're not moving better after this, then you're basically not gonna see any results. And again, this does hold true for any type of real knee pain type of thing. What you really wanna do is aim at improving the way your body moves. If you can do that, you're probably gonna be on the right path. But essentially, you wanna make sure that you're getting it checked to know that you aren't doing anything in terms of these movements that could be making things worse. For example, someone that has chondromalacia, you don't want to be doing like any deep lunging, you don't want to be doing any deep squatting, leg extension. You should never do leg extensions, but just saying, you shouldn't be doing things like a leg extension, something that's going to put a lot of tension on that knee and really start pressing up against the cartilage in the back. You don't want to start grinding that away. The word was cartilage. I was thinking of the word cartilage. Thanks. My sister's in the room. Now that you've done all the foam rolling, you're going on to phase 2, which is essentially trying to create some movement at the hip. Now, what I'm doing is I'm keeping all these movements dynamic because I want you to be able to create movement without any restrictions. That hip tightness is basically coming from being seated all day. When you're on your bike, you're doing it again. When you're in the car, you're driving, you're in this tight bent position. That's what's going to create that almost restriction at the front of the hip. You want to create that space. So doing a quad, basically a quad hip flexor stretch dynamically, is going to help undo a lot of that tension. The next thing you're going to want to do is create some movement internally and externally. So there's 2 exercises that I really like doing for that. The first one is a 90-90. This is going to allow you to really start training the internal external rotation of the hip, so basically turning in and turning out. And it's going to allow you to dictate and get some core contraction in there as you're lowering yourself down and start really building the muscles up in those extreme ranges. The frog is a great exercise for really understanding dissociation. So basically, are you able to move your hip without your back compensating for that? I just pointed at my stomach, but I'm not going to point. Fine. You're going to move your hip well so that your back doesn't. Everyone happy? Good. The thing that you really want to pay attention to with this is that if you don't know about dissociation, I'm going to link it up above. You're going to go to a clip that I posted 2 days ago that was basically on hip dissociation and why it's important. So this exercise is really going to help you kind of understand hip dissociation. It's a little bit more intense than normal, but what you can do is you're going to be basically taking your legs and swinging them out from side to side. Now, when you are doing this, the goal is to really make sure that your back stays stable and your legs are moving out. So you're not aiding yourself with your back to create that rotation. You're able to rotate it right from the hip. Now, why is this important? Well, when you're biking, you're trying to make sure that you're not restricted in forcing your knees to fall in. And at the same time, what you don't want to do is have that same habit happening outside. So remember what I said. You're not on the bike for 16 hours a day. You are spending 16 hours a day walking around, sitting around. You don't want any limitations carrying themselves over into your biking. Once you've done that, you come to my favorite part, which is activations. Now, activations are a great way to really start undoing a lot of that, undoing a lot of the poor movements, creating some movement with some other muscles. So something like doing a bridge, which is a great exercise for you to be doing. So what you're gonna do is slap that foam roller right between the legs, getting that nice bridge up and holding it up there and then kind of firing through some reps. What that's gonna do is that's gonna train the hamstrings, get the glutes to work, and really create some space in the front of the hip. The next thing you're gonna do is grab an elastic, slap it around your knees. You can get an exercise in like a crab walk, or you can do something like a simpler exercise, which is more like a half squat with your knees caving in and pulling back out. What that's gonna do is that's gonna teach you how to control the dissociation. So really start loading your joint and moving your legs in and out, and at the same time, controlling and getting some of that glute med work, which is gonna stabilize that knee and allow the proper muscles to do their job. And that alignment that's gonna happen through doing all these exercises is what's gonna allow you to not have kind of built up tension and kind of pent up tension from your entire day carrying itself over into your biking. You're gonna wanna go through these things on a regular basis. Remember, I'm always telling you guys this, and I'm gonna keep telling you this until the end of time. If you are not consistent with these exercises, you will not see the results. You'll start feeling a little bit better, but it'll quickly go right back to what it was before because you need to be consistent. Your body is under a lot of stress with the things we do throughout our day. So unless you get rid of the way you work, unless you get rid of the way you drive your car, and if you can find a way to stand up when you're driving, then let me know because I'd love to know. But until that time happens, you are really definitely going to need to be doing this every single day. That's where you're really going to see the results. So if you guys like this episode, please leave me a little comment in the comment section. Let me know what you guys think. Hit that subscribe button, and I will see you next time.